Okay, Chapter 8, Night at the Club Room. Well, Ewan, this will be a great time for you to guard me and tell me all your deepest, darkest secrets. And maybe smooch. Let's hope for the best. Ewan and I arrived to the club room alone. Allie stopped on the way to get something to eat since I hadn't had lunch, and neither had she since she'd been running around preparing for Operation Fake Nora, or whatever. The club was empty. Not surprising, since everyone else was probably still in class. School was about to end, so presumably they'd be showing up soon, too. It feels sort of weird arriving like this, through the courtyard and in the middle of the day.
At this point, it's going to be better if you just get used to the weird.
Yeah, still struggling with it. Which is weird in itself, considering everything that's happened. I flopped on the sofa and tipped my head back with a sigh. I feel bad that you guys missed class to deal with my issues.
It's not that big a deal.
And you didn't have a reading partner in literature the last couple of days either. Sorry about that.
I didn't go anyway.
What? Why? I knew for a fact that he'd been skipping enough that his grade was in peril, and he just started showing up again. I thought it was because of Mrs. Roberts' threat. Ewan looked away awkwardly.
You weren't there, so...
You were showing up just because of me?
I mean, I didn't mind it when I had a decent reading partner.
What's your issue with literature anyway? You really hate reading that much.
I don't mind it in general. It's just... It's the plays that bother me, that's all. Brings back memories I don't really care to dwell on.
Oh boy, come on, let it happen. I chewed my lip thinking about that. Plays. And memories he didn't like to dwell on. Giving up on performing had really been a struggle for him, hadn't it? I knew some people might be dismissive of a kid's interest in a lost dream, but at the same time, sometimes the most passionate people developed their interest when they were quite young. I'd been drawing all my life, and it was something I couldn't even fathom losing. I mean, if suddenly I couldn't do art anymore for some reason, I'd be devastated. It was my thing. It was part of what made me... me. I couldn't not paint. I read a book once that said being an artist was about having a scream inside you that wanted to get out in a special way. And it truly was like that for me. Like there was something that came from deep inside, something I couldn't ignore. I imagined Ewan's drive to perform and love for being on stage were probably similar. Being in a situation where he couldn't risk putting himself in front of a lot of people meant losing that. I'm sure it had to be devastating. It's chapter 8. It's chapter 8. I haven't been pushing. This isn't like, wait for him in his own time. This is like, yes, well, about me and my problems. That Dracen fellow is doing a terrible job. Heck it. I'm going in. If we're never gonna talk about it, it's not gonna be now. If it's not now, it's not never. Let's just go. Okay, I like the way you worded it. Ewan, is it okay to ask about what happened back then? Maybe it was just curiosity, or being nosy, but part of it was just wanting to know more about him. And we are asking him, we're not asking other people about what happened. It's just the two of us. It's a private conversation. We're leaving it in his ball court. I think this is as good of an opportunity as any. And wondering if there was some way I could help. I almost expected him to say no, but instead he slouched next to me on the sofa and ran a hand through his hair.
Well, it's not some huge secret or anything. I just don't really like talking about it.
You don't have to, then. I mean, you don't have to talk about it if it's difficult. He shot me a crooked smile.
It's okay. It was just pretty awful. Basically, I was with a local theater company. People who were serious about acting, not just hobbyists. I mean, I'd done lessons, classes. I just really loved being on stage back then. Everything about it was fun, exciting. Anyway, we were rehearsing an original play by the owner, and I had one of the lead roles. The schedule was pretty rigorous, but it was in summer, so it was fine. But I was pretty exhausted during the opening week. I remember it was a weekend performance. I'd been feeling kind of weird all day, I don't know, sluggish, foggy. I thought I was coming down with something. I mean, until that point I'd shown no Fae traits. We assumed I hadn't inherited enough of my dad's Fae blood to be more than a human with some magic talent. And I was fine with that. I mean, my dad was okay, but based on what I knew about Fae at that time, I had no interest in being one of them. My experiences with them hadn't been great. Turns out, I wasn't getting sick. My Fae heritage just suddenly decided to assert itself in the worst way and at the worst possible time. I passed out on stage mid-performance. And by passed out, I mean I hit the floor and my head went rolling, exited stage left, and the rest of me just lay there with green smoke pouring out. I was too out of it to remember much. Everyone freaked, obviously. Fortunately, my parents were there that night. I came to with my dad dragging my body through the alley behind the theater, my stupid head under his arm.
Your dad must be very strong.
Mom tried to contain the damage until the local agency got there, but it was a major incident. The containment and control unit had to chase down dozens of people, stop the police reports, erase memories, keep an eye on news outlets to make sure the story was contained. They had to track down all pictures, videos. It was just an ordeal. They concocted the story that I was badly injured on set, so I guess that part turned out fine. It was another story in the news cycle to everyone else. I didn't leave my room for 2 weeks, trying to figure out how to control this stupid ability. Quickly realized I can't. Not yet. I was terrified it would happen again. Dropped the play completely, thinking I'd go back when I got control. And I never did. There were several smaller incidents at school. I tried my best to just go on living normally, but after the first few encore appearances of the headless actor, I just
Started to isolate yourself? He gave me a long look.
Yeah, that. My family eventually moved. Mom wanted to give me a fresh start somewhere else or whatever.
Yeah, I know how that goes. I mean, he hasn't really felt like anyone understood him until potentially you. I mean, it might be good to remind him of that, though. Although, also focusing on the fact that his dad is not losing his head every 5 seconds, so there must be a way to control it. Which doesn't mean... he's gonna basically look like this forever if he's a full-on Fae, I assume. And he can just glamour himself, too, if he wants to. So... presumably he will get control, and he should be able to do theater at some point again, yeah? Will you ever gain control like your father? I mean, it'll eventually happen, right?
Eventually, one assumes. I mean, I have gotten somewhat better at predicting it anyway, and I recover a lot faster. I don't always completely lose it. I mean, that's usually if I've gotten really upset or something. If it's just the time of day or whatever, I stay a bit more, coherent.
So when that happens, when you gain full control, you should take up acting again.
You think so?
Well, I want to see you perform. I mean, I have a hard time imagining you on stage, but I think it would be cool to see. Especially if it involves tights and singing. I've heard you sing quite well.
Ha ha.
I'm serious, though. I want to see you perform, so I really hope you take it up again at some point.
I'll try. Gaining control seems like it's quite a ways away at this point. Then again, I think I gave up trying after a while.
I smacked his arm. Well, ungive up! I don't think your whole life has to be defined by being Fae, you know.
Maybe you're right.
Of course I'm right. I'm always.
You are not always right, so don't even go there. But I'll give you this one. This time.
Pain in the butt. He smirked at me, and it felt like the dark cloud lifted just a little. I was glad. Ah, we bonded. He trusted us enough with his story and things. Yay! Ewan's phone chimed, and he quickly pulled it out, glancing down at the screen. A slow smirk spread across his face. Dracen? What's that?
Dracen is hiding in your room. He says Spencer is cranky.
That he is. More so than usual lately. I suddenly felt very weird about Dracen being in my room. Alone. Didn't really think this one through. Though I didn't think Dracen would snoop or anything. Then again, he was such a ditz, he might do it without thinking that I might not like it. Ewan frowned slightly as another message came through. What now?
He definitely senses fairy magic from Spencer.
Interesting. But you didn't. Oh, you did?
I did too, but I thought it was just residual magic from being around you. I mean, it can rub off in small amounts. Dracen says the magic is coming from Spencer himself. It's just really weak.
What does that mean?
I don't know. He said there are several other magic auras in the house that don't feel like either of you. It's definitely fairy magic. Evidence of some fairy activity for sure.
That doesn't sound good. Any of it. Is he saying Spencer has magic? But why? I mean, I did because of the changeling thing, but why would he?
I told Dracen to stay sharp and not let his guard down.
I'm really worried about him being there alone.
Whatever is going on there, he can probably handle it better than you. No offense, but you're still new to this. He's a full-fledged cryptic who has dealt with this stuff all his life. He's going to be fine.
I really hope you're right. The final bell rang at that moment, as I sat there worrying about my family, my friends, and the entire situation. How did we even get to this point? If Spencer has magic of his own, shouldn't he have been able to see the club? I know he came up here several times while stalking me around.
Well, it depends. Whatever magic is coming from him is very, very weak. It's possible that it just wasn't enough to trigger the entrance spell. Like I said, I thought it was just residual magic from interacting with you. The club isn't going to react to that level of magic. I mean, if the club reacted to residual magic, a lot of normal students would be able to enter because they interact with club members frequently. Pretty much everyone who spends time with Corvin has trace amounts of his magic clinging to them, but they can't see the club either.
That's true. I was changed because I was in fairy, so now I have magic too. Is it possible that Spencer was somehow, I don't know, mutated by being around the changelings so much?
I don't think so. You were changed because your body was in a place where it was literally bombarded by fairy magic non-stop for who knows how long. I don't think just being around a fairy for a few years would be able to change him to that degree.
So this was something he was born with.
Seems like that's probably the case. It's possible that because you two share a pretty deep bond as twins, that the changes to your life energy affected him. I'm not really too knowledgeable about twins, though. I know they can have that kind of connection, though.
But...
Hey, guys! Nora! Didn't know you were here.
Hey, I just got here a little while ago, actually.
Is everything okay? Allie told us there was a problem, but she didn't really explain what was going on.
Well, I don't know about everything being okay yet.
There's definitely a situation, unfortunately.
But we also don't know what's going on. Not really. Ewan gave them a brief rundown of the situation at my house. Allie came in while he was talking and just stood near the door listening.
So that's what the sleepwalking was about. I was wondering. I didn't realize things had gotten that bad, though. Me either. I wish we could have helped out more.
It's not your job to babysit me.
Has nothing to do with babysitting. We just want to help out a friend.
I appreciate that.
Maybe you two can keep an eye on things now. We don't know how long Dracen's going to be staying.
Hopefully not long, though. I don't think my nerves can handle it.
Come to think of it, this might be why Brenna's been acting so weird lately.
Brenna? You mean at school? How has she been acting weird?
Oh yeah, you guys are pretty close. I wouldn't say we're close. It's just...
Brenna's his cat.
Nora!
Probably should have let him reveal that a little more gently, but my nerves were too frazzled to dance around that subject. Might as well just get everything out in the open while we were discussing it all. I thought that was common knowledge. I did not realize.
Wait, what?
Okay, it's been a while since something surprised me that much. Brenna is your cat?
Even Danny didn't know? Sheesh. Wow, okay.
This explains a lot about your relationship with her.
It's not what you guys think. She showed up one day, and I didn't realize she wasn't a normal cat, so we adopted her. But then she turned out to be, well, Brenna. Except she just stuck around, so... yeah. Brenna is my cat.
Ewan, I don't think I've mentioned this before. Or maybe I have, but your family is super weird. He just found out that Brenna's his aunt. Nora, stop revealing secrets! You're usually so zip about the whole secrets thing. You're just like, yeah, so Brenna's Elliot's cat. She's also Ewan's mom. Oh, also, by the way, when she first showed herself to Elliot, she was completely naked. How do you feel about that, Ewan?
Ewan's family?
She's his aunt.
Brenna is your aunt? Nora?
I mean, I'm not wrong, so...
Oh my god, can you stop just casually dropping these bombshells on us?
Right? I smirked slightly.
You are enjoying this way too much.
It's my revenge for all the times you people did this to me. Ewan just sighed and, I guess, decided to just go with it.
Yeah, she's my... aunt. Sort of? I don't know. I can't work out if she's actually married to my uncle or just engaged to him. Whoa, an uncle? Is he anything like your dad? I don't know. Never met him. Based on what my dad is willing to tell me, I don't think he can actually leave Fairy for some reason.
Is he the king? Oh god. What if he's the king of Fairy? Because, I mean, his dad was like the leader of the host. How do you get like such a high position? Wait, hold on. What? I just read the next line.
Anyway, it's not that big a deal. If you want a really crazy bombshell, Dracen is Mark's cousin.
What? How does vampire equal unicorn? What? Wait, explain. Yeah. What? How is that even possible?
Dracen's dad is with Mark's uncle, so...
That explains even less. What? 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 I don't understand. My brain has stopped. Ewan, how dare you one-up me? Well, I guess it's a very tight-knit, cryptic community. Ahem. Oh my god, is everyone in this club related to everyone else somehow? That's super weird. Though the idea of those two at family gatherings really amused me. Now that you mention it. Woo. I kind of wanted to see it, to be honest. Ewan just laughed.
I've met him a few times at Dracen's place, so yeah.
Man, someone needs to create a relationship chart at this place so we can figure out who's related to whom. This is nuts.
Yeah. As long as no one is their own grandfather or something, I think it's fine.
Jeez. Anyway, I just came to drop off some stuff. I'm going to have to head out. I'm wanted at the agency, unfortunately. I'll probably have to give a full report on your situation, though. I wouldn't expect anything to come of that. Well, nothing more than them monitoring it from afar. This is way too steeped in fairy politics for them to get involved at this point.
Helpful.
Though I'll see if maybe someone has some connections that might help us out. You never know.
I understand.
We need to head off too, but we'll definitely keep an eye on your place tonight, okay?
Thanks.
No problem. We'll let you know if anything happens.
Well, I can at least take solace in the fact that Danny can hear everything. The three of them waved and headed off. Allie gave us a bag of food from the murder before she left, but to be honest, I wasn't all that hungry. All the fairy drama wasn't doing much for my appetite. I was too worried about, well, everything. Ewan didn't have that problem, apparently. He was already digging into one of the bags for a sandwich. I pulled a pillow on my lap, frowning at nothing. Hey, Ewan?
Yeah?
I was just wondering. You said your uncle can't leave Fairy. Is that somehow related to your dad's exile?
Why do you ask?
I don't know. Just trying to get a better feel for fairy politics, as Allie says. Trying to understand what makes fairies fairy along. Why they do the things they do. I guess I just feel like if I understand them better, I'll be able to figure some of this out.
I don't really know the story behind my uncle, to be honest. Dad won't talk about it.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm majorly sus now that his uncle's king of the fairies, and they wanted to steal Ewan because he's like a full-fledged fae that doesn't have any of the inherent weaknesses that the fae have. He's like strong breeding stock as well. Man, make him the new king? Or at least bring him over so he can become the heir at some point and then become... Oh, man. I'm suspicious.
I mean, I've worked some stuff out on my own, based on some of my own experiences. I guess you could say I've got a working hypothesis.
Okay, lay it on me. Do you mind sharing it?
Well, I don't know that hearing it will really help you solve the enigma of fairies or anything, but... Look, you know my dad was part of the Sluagh, right?
Right, yeah. Unseelie host went around being a jerk. As Unseelies are wont to do, I suppose.
Anyway, humans know the Sluagh is some kind of terrifying host of fairies and ghosts. Bullies for the most part. But they're way more than just that to the Unseelie court. The fairies you've learned about, the Seelies and Unseelies, they aren't the only fae. Not in this world, not in other worlds. And not all factions get along. The Sluagh is an army, and my dad was a captain in that army, more or less. Fought battles for the Unseelies for centuries. But then he met my mom, and he ditched his duties, abandoned knighthood, and vanished into the human world. For a long time, the fairies tried to get him back. Mostly by going after my mom.
Because of course they did.
Well, my dad was one of their best, and they never succeeded. So eventually they just exiled him. It was kind of a weak punishment considering he left willingly in the first place. And if he tried to go back, they'd probably welcome him. But when he had me, suddenly all the renewed interest. Whether I was human or fae, they wanted me.
So they really came after you?
Relentlessly. I don't remember much of it really. A few times when I was old enough, I remember them trying to lure me away. Fairies have this urge to wander anyway, and their voices are pretty seductive. But every time, my dad was there to bring me back home. Over the years, they kind of retreated, left us alone. Still, when it became obvious I was fae, they were back at it again.
Stubborn jerks, aren't they?
Stubborn and dangerous. That's the part of the story I know. The part I've theorized about is that I think they sent Brenna after me. My head was kind of muddled back then, so I don't remember it well. But I do remember a black cat.
Brenna? You think Brenna was sent for you?
Well, she was a knight as well. One of their most terrifying, actually. That part my dad did tell me.
Well, I can't see her as a knight, really. But I get the terrifying part. She's still terrifying.
I knew at the time that someone big had been sent after us. I never really knew how Dad got us out of that situation. But I think my dad convinced her to leave us alone. For his brother's sake. Because we're family. If that's true, it makes sense why she'd have been exiled. And why they took pains to make sure my uncle couldn't leave. It would have been punishment for everyone. And I'm sure losing two of their best knights smarted. So they didn't want to lose my uncle, too. And that explains why Brenna hates the Unseelies so much.
I knew she had a major issue with them, but I honestly never would have thought it was because of a pretty dramatic love story.
Fairies are fickle, moody cheaters. But when they love, it's with everything they've got. I mean, look at my dad. He gave up everything to be with my mom. And he never looked back.
Well, I guess since you're fae, that's what's in my future, so... Just no cages. No cages, no weird teas. I'm fine with anything else. I really admire that ability to love with the whole heart like that. To just throw everything aside and give yourself over to that kind of emotion. You may find this hard to believe, but I struggle a little with feelings. Sincerity isn't really one of my virtues.
I don't think that's totally true. Your snark is incredibly sincere, I think. Besides, as far as virtues go, I think sincerity should be low on the list of concerns.
Hey, are you implying I don't have many virtues?
I'm just saying you might want to worry about some more important ones. Kindness, compassion.
I'll have you know I am a super compassionate person.
Height?
That... Hey! Sheesh. I can't do anything about that. I smacked his arm. Height isn't even a virtue.
It is if you want anything off the top shelf in the kitchen.
Get him, Nora, get him. I elbowed him in the gut, but he just laughed.
To be honest, though, I feel the same way. I admire the part of Fae that can love so deeply, or pour themselves so fully into their endeavors.
A pity so many of those endeavors involve kidnapping.
Exactly. I hate the part of them, of us, that makes us do terrible things without batting an eye.
I don't think you have to include yourself in that us. You're not like that.
Sometimes I wonder. I don't think I can say I got all the good parts and none of the bad.
Hey, I didn't say you don't have bad qualities. I just said I don't think you're a kidnapper.
Thanks. I think.
Okay, major segue. So what's your take on the Spencer thing anyway? I mean, I know you're not an expert, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. At any rate, you know more about Faye than I do.
Well, I don't know what's really going on with him or anything, but my main concern right now is that part of the reason they're so reluctant to let you go is because you got tangled with my family. I worry we did more harm than good when we tried to help you.
Whoa, that isn't true at all. The changeling thing was a pretty serious situation that needed to be taken care of.
Yeah, but it might have been best to let you try to get help from the murderer or anyone else. Brenna, my dad, and I have a strange relationship with the Unseelie, and a long history. If by helping you we raise their ire, I just don't know the payoff is worth that. I mean, we did the whole ritual with you. If we just dumped the potion on your head and called it a day, they might not have taken as much notice. As it is, it's clear you've got an actual relationship with,
He suddenly colored and looked away.
with us. I mean, you know, that you actually know us and everything. It wasn't some coincidence or momentary lapse of judgment or whatever.
I think you're jumping to conclusions. We don't know they wouldn't have started going after Spencer regardless of who helped me.
Maybe, but I feel like they should have moved on by now. With a simple broken contract? But they haven't. I know they can be weirdly stubborn about things, but this feels like more. And look, they lost my dad, they lost Brenna, me, now you. 4 losses all related to the same family is a lot to deal with. And changelings are particularly valuable. I just worry that we really angered them with this.
4 losses. Ewan kept talking, but I kind of tuned him out a bit because somehow that felt wrong. They lost me, but I didn't know why. It was like an old memory that I couldn't quite fully latch onto.
On top of that, they could be worried my dad gave you fairy secrets that he shouldn't have. That would definitely make them very reluctant to let you go.
I don't know why it felt like the Fae had lost Spencer too. Because they'd never had him to begin with. I was their target from the start? But why didn't that feel right? Ewan paused, giving me a curious look.
Nora?
Fairies. And Spencer.
What's wrong?
I was just... I don't know. It feels like there's something I'm forgetting. Something important. And weirdly, Spencer said the same thing to me earlier today.
What do you think you're forgetting?
I gave him a disparaging look. If I knew that, it wouldn't be forgotten, would it?
Yes, I know that, thank you. I was hoping for a general idea. I mean, what is it in relation to?
Spencer. and fairies.
You think there's some connection there, besides you?
I don't know. I mean, I told you before, when we were kids, we both saw them. I mean, I think we did. It's all a bit faded by now, but I do remember seeing weird things. And Spencer did as well. All the time. Frequently. Everywhere.
I've been thinking about that, actually. Maybe the two of you did have some hidden fairy heritage. It would explain the weak magic aura he has. And it could be why the Fae targeted you in the first place.
Targeted me?
Yeah, as a changeling?
What if I wasn't their target?
What do you mean by that?
You remember that morning with Kara outside? That day she mentioned something weird. Something about Spencer going missing. When she said that, at first I thought nothing like that had ever happened. But suddenly it was like a memory tried to surface. And then all the pain. Every time I think about it, I get a headache. But I think she might have been right. I think Spencer did go missing when we were little. I just can't recall the details. He said he's been dreaming about the past and feels like he's forgetting something. And I'm just having the same feeling, I guess.
Maybe there really is more going on here than we know. Can you tell me more about your childhood here? Maybe we can work out when this contract happened, what the events were surrounding it. It might give us some hints. It's possible your history with the Fae in Pine Hollow is more important to what's happening now than we thought.
Sure. I don't really know where to start, though. I mean, we were born here. There's a lot of history.
When you first remember seeing fairies?
I don't really know. I feel like we could see them for forever, really. I had forgotten for so long, but now that it's all come back to me, I can't recall a time in my life we didn't see them. Well, I guess I didn't really forget. It's more that I just sort of eventually started thinking it was all pretend play. Just imaginary friends and that kind of thing. But now, I mean, with everything that happened, I started wondering if maybe it wasn't pretend. The more I thought about it, the more it felt less like a dream and more like it was all real. I mean, we'd see faces in the trees, strange little people. We'd hear voices in the woods singing. This is going to sound weird, but my grandmother had this apple tree and there was this old man that lived in it. She always said she had to leave the last apple of the season for him so there would be apples the next year. Oh, how interesting. So Grandma could see it too? Gam Gam, could you see them fairies? Let's see. No. Apple Tree Man! Okay, pretty self-explanatory. Apple Tree Man is a type of tree spirit associated rather obviously with apple trees. Usually they say he lives in the oldest tree in the orchard, and if you want him to continue to give his blessings to the field, you need to give him offerings of apple cider. And always leave the last apple of the season for him rather than taking it for yourself. Okay. I asked if she could see him, but she said that she had only seen him once or twice when she was a little girl. But that tree came from a sapling her mother had given her. A sapling from a tree at the house she grew up in. Grandma said the old man had followed her from her childhood home.
Sounds like your grandmother was also sensitive to fairies. It definitely sounds like something that runs in your family.
There was also this lady in green that Spencer and I used to see in the woods a lot. Long blonde hair, green dress. She was weird. Every time she saw us, she'd take our hands and let us back home as if we were lost. Even if we were just playing or knew where we were. She always let us back home. She had this really weird way of walking, sort of lopsided and limping. And I swear one time I saw a tail.
Sounds like a glass stick, maybe. You're lucky all she did was lead you home. They can be pretty dangerous.
There was this weird hill in the woods behind our house that we used to play on a lot. She hated when we went near... What? Ewan had the weirdest look on his face when I mentioned that hill.
A fairy hill. Was that a fairy hill, Nora?
Music change. Fairy hills, fairy hills. Where are the fairy hills? There we go. There are numerous legends that talk about fairies living under hills or mounds. Even the common word for fairy, she, comes from a phrase that means people of the mounds. On certain important days, it's said that a fairy hill will be lifted off the ground on pillars so the fairies can celebrate. In general, it's pretty dangerous for a human to try to enter a fairy hill. I don't... My mind went blank and there was a sharp pain behind my eyes.
Nora?
Sorry, just... sudden headache. Ewan sat back against the cushions, regarding me with a serious look on his face.
A headache when you try to remember that hill. And one when you try to remember something about Spencer vanishing as a child.
What is it?
Well, I can't say for sure based just on what you've told me, but I'd bet part of what you're forgetting is that someone doesn't want you to remember what happened at that hill.
What do you mean by that?
It's possible someone put a seal on your memories about that place.
Something meaning... something to do with all this. The changeling thing. Spencer. Me.
A strange hill? A protective fairy that wanted you to stay away from it? And I happen to know there is a fairy mound here in Pine Hollow that's been dormant for about 10 years. Give or take.
A dormant fairy hill. There is that feeling again, that reticent memory, and that pain. So it all goes back to that hill then. Somehow that felt right. I couldn't say why. But even so, where did Spencer fit into all of it? I couldn't help but feel this. All of it was my fault. That I should have protected him better. Not to mention that it felt like I'd somehow put my parents in harm's way with all this as well. And Ewan's family also got pulled in. With their history, I was certain they'd prefer to not be dealing with this again. Well, I mean, he did say, I don't know if the payoff is worth the risk we took, so. I'm sorry for dragging your family into all this.
Don't be. It feels more like we dragged you in.
I don't see how that could possibly be the case. If it wasn't for me, none of this...
It's not your fault. Look, I'm not worried about Dad. I know he can look after himself.
I'm sorry I dragged him into it.
Don't be. I think he was looking for an excuse to do something crazy. And get out of the bakery for a while.
And the curse of the disappearing pastries? He grinned.
Yes. And listen, he's Fae, but he's not a bad person.
I never thought he was. I sighed softly. I'm worried about my family, too.
I know.
It must be nice to be able to share everything with them. About both worlds.
Sometimes, I guess.
I'll never be able to tell mine. I mean, that's what everyone keeps saying.
Well, it would be pretty dangerous.
Yeah. It's dangerous now and they don't know anything.
There are worse things than secrets. Believe me.
I could definitely imagine. I had to admit, I felt a little better after all that, though I'd feel better if I had solid answers. Ewan and I continued to talk for the rest of the afternoon. Some of it was talking about the current situation, or me sharing more about my childhood. Some was Ewan explaining various things about fairy society to me. All of it was punctuated by text from Dracen, mostly silly things about my brother being grumpy or whatever. At several points, I was seriously worried about my family, probably thinking I'd gone insane. I couldn't wait to get back and deal with the fallout of Dracen's exuberance. Allie also checked in with us. A lot of it just felt like waiting. though for what I wasn't sure. News of some kind, I guess. But there was never any sort of news that came.